And just one for me again. And just one more for me just here. Fantastic. And just one for me again.
In the ruthless, multi-billion-dollar arena of professional sports business, there are two distinct ways to communicate massive, unshakable leverage. The first way is to aggressively scream at your opponents across a mahogany negotiating table, desperately citing television ratings and merchandise sales in an attempt to prove your intrinsic corporate value. The second way, which is infinitely more terrifying to the billionaire ownership class, is absolute, deafening silence. When a superstar player possesses true, undeniable leverage, they do not need to issue frantic public relations statements. They do not need to threaten a strike. They simply step outside of the basketball ecosystem entirely, attach themselves to a global luxury conglomerate, and remind the entire sporting world that they are significantly bigger than the league that technically employs them. Right now, the WNBA is completely paralyzed by a catastrophic labor dispute, with 80% of the workforce technically unemployed, and the entire 2026 season standing on the absolute brink of cancellation. But the single most valuable asset in the history of women's sports is not in the boardroom. She is not on a Zoom call with the union executives. Caitlin Clark is currently sitting in the front row at Prada Fashion Week in Milan, Italy, surrounded by global fashion icons, and she is silently delivering the most devastating, unvarnished message to both the WNBA owners and the veteran players who desperately need her to survive. Welcome to The Breakdown. Let us expose the brilliant, silent leverage play of Caitlin Clark and the brutal psychological warfare that the ownership groups are currently unleashing on a terrified players' union. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of the power dynamic currently playing out, you have to look at the massive, glaring contrast between Caitlin Clark's current reality and the absolute panic tearing through the rest of the WNBA. The veteran establishment within the players' union is currently fighting a deeply existential battle for survival. They are aggressively demanding 27.5% of the league's gross revenue. They are begging the billionaire owners to provide them with guaranteed year-round housing subsidies. They are terrified that if the collective bargaining agreement falls apart, they will instantly lose their health insurance, their meager minimum salaries, and their primary source of relevance in the modern sports economy. The veteran players are trapped inside the WNBA fishbowl, utterly dependent on the league's infrastructure to sustain their livelihoods. But Caitlin Clark is entirely unbothered by the boardroom drama. She is completely detached from the desperation of the veterans because she has systematically built a multi-million-dollar corporate empire that does not require a WNBA paycheck to function. Listen to the absolute, unvarnished reality of Caitlin Clark's current mindset, and exactly how her presence in Milan exposes the massive financial divide between herself and the rest of the players' union.
Caitlin is chilling right now, bruh. She definitely is. She do not have a care in the world, bruh, about what is going on in the WNBA.
She does not have a single care in the world about what is currently happening in the WNBA. Let that terrifying reality sink into the minds of the billionaire owners and the union executives. Caitlin Clark is currently securing massive, high-end corporate partnerships with global luxury brands like Prada. She has an unprecedented, multi-million-dollar signature shoe contract with Nike. She has equity deals with Gatorade and State Farm. She is operating as an independent, highly lucrative multinational corporation. If the WNBA owners decide to lock the arena doors and completely cancel the 2026 season, the vast majority of the league's players will face immediate financial ruin. But Caitlin Clark will simply continue to travel the world, shoot national television commercials, and collect millions of dollars in endorsement revenue while her brand continues to grow exponentially. By sitting front row at a Prada fashion show in Italy during the most critical week of the WNBA labor negotiations, Clark is silently holding up a massive mirror to the league. She is effectively telling the owners, "I am the product. I am the reason you secured a $2.2 billion media rights deal. I am the reason you have sold out arenas, and I am completely fine waiting you out. I do not need your $75,000 base salary to survive. You need me on the floor to justify your corporate valuations." And she is simultaneously telling the veteran players who spent the last year minimizing her impact, "You are currently fighting over the crumbs of an economic pie that I single-handedly baked. Do not pretend that you have the leverage to demand a massive revenue share when I am the one generating the revenue." And it is precisely because of this massive, undeniable Caitlin Clark economy that the billionaire owners have decided to completely stop playing games with the union. The owners know that the entire global sporting audience is desperately waiting to watch Clark's sophomore season. They know the television networks are demanding inventory, but instead of caving to the union's aggressive financial demands to save the season, the owners have executed one of the most ruthless, psychologically devastating corporate squeezes in the history of labor relations. Listen to ESPN reporter Alexa Philippou detail the exact, uncompromising ultimatum that the ownership groups just dropped onto the negotiating table, officially putting a loaded gun to the head of the 2026 season.
Malik, I guess you could call it a deadline of sorts. The players were told in that meeting yesterday that if a term sheet is not completed by March 10th, then the most likely outcome is that the season will be impacted.
If a term sheet is not completed by March 10th, the season will be impacted. This is not a casual suggestion. This is not a soft deadline designed to encourage dialogue. This is a definitive, unyielding corporate threat. The owners are explicitly telling the players' union that if they do not completely abandon their highly unrealistic, mathematically impossible demands for gross revenue sharing and massive salary cap spikes within the next 2 weeks, the billionaire class will actively begin canceling games. They will lock the facilities, they will stop paying for health insurance, they will allow the entire massive, unprecedented momentum of the Caitlin Clark era to grind to an absolute halt, and they will publicly blame the players' union for destroying it. But to truly appreciate the sheer, unapologetic ruthlessness of this specific March 10th deadline, you have to look at exactly how the owners engineered this crisis. This was not an accident. The owners did not suddenly realize that the calendar was moving too fast. They intentionally, surgically constructed this exact panic scenario over the last 2 months. In late December, the players' union submitted a massive, highly detailed proposal outlining their demands for the new collective bargaining agreement. Listen to the devastating reality of exactly how the ownership groups responded to that proposal and why the players' union is currently furious at being mathematically trapped in a corner.
Told me today that this was not taken well by the players when they heard this, that especially after the league took 6 weeks to respond to a union proposal at the beginning of the year, it just did not go over well, and that the players see this as an attempt for the league to pressure them into taking a deal.
The league intentionally took 6 entire weeks to respond to the union's proposal. Let that incredible level of corporate disrespect echo in your mind for a moment. The owners received the union's demands in late December, and they purposefully threw the document into a drawer and ignored it for a month and a half. They completely ghosted the players' union. This was not laziness. This was not bureaucratic incompetence. This was a highly calculated, deeply aggressive psychological weapon in corporate negotiations. Whoever controls the timeline controls the leverage. The owners knew that the players' union wanted to drag the negotiations out for months, hoping that the fear of losing the Caitlin Clark season would eventually force the owners to cave, so the owners flipped the script. They intentionally wasted 6 weeks of critical negotiating time by refusing to answer the phone. They waited until the absolute last possible second, when the structural foundation of the upcoming season was beginning to crack, and then they finally responded with a completely uncompromising counteroffer and a brutal March 10th deadline. The players' union is furious because they realize they have been completely outmaneuvered. The owners intentionally compressed the timeline to induce absolute panic. They squeezed the union into a 2-week window where they have absolutely no time to formulate a counter-strategy, build public sympathy, or prepare their members for a prolonged strike. The owners are essentially telling the union, "We ignored you for 6 weeks because your demands were irrelevant. Now, we are giving you exactly 14 days to accept our 15% revenue sharing cap, or we will systematically dismantle the upcoming season. You have no time left to argue. You only have time to surrender." And the absolute brilliance of this specific corporate squeeze is that the owners have perfectly masked their ruthless ultimatum behind the unassailable logic of basic logistics. When the players' union attempts to argue that the March 10th deadline is a manufactured, artificial threat designed to force a bad deal, the owners simply point to the mathematical reality of running a professional sports league. Listen to the final, undeniable structural argument that the owners are using to justify the March 10th drop-dead date, and why the WNBA is currently paralyzed by an unprecedented logistical nightmare.
Tell me the league sees this March 10th date as simply reality of this is what we need. We need this amount of time for off-season activity to get done. You have an expansion draft that still needs to be held. You have all but 2 league veterans hitting free agency,
right,
and you still are hoping that the season can start on time.
All right, so essentially, Mark,
you have an expansion draft that still needs to be held. You have all but 2 league veterans hitting unrestricted free agency. This is the absolute trump card that destroys any argument the players' union can possibly make. The owners are looking at the union executives and saying, This is not a negotiation tactic. This is an operational impossibility. We have two brand new, multi-million-dollar franchises in Toronto and Portland that literally do not have a single human being on their rosters. We cannot hold an expansion draft to build those teams if we do not have a collective bargaining agreement dictating the salary cap rules. Furthermore, because the players' union aggressively coordinated their contracts to expire simultaneously, over 80% of the entire league is currently unemployed. We cannot hold a massive, league-wide free agency period, process dozens of complex contracts, hold the collegiate draft, run physicals, and open training camps in a matter of weeks. The logistical runway required to actually start the season on May 8th requires a signed agreement by March 10th. If the union refuses to sign, the owners do not even have to officially lock them out. The league will simply collapse under the weight of its own administrative paralysis. Caitlin Clark is sitting in Milan, Italy, wearing Prada, completely insulated from the devastating financial storm that is about to hit the WNBA. She has built an independent, global corporate empire that makes the WNBA look like a minor league operation. Meanwhile, the veteran players who spent the last year demanding respect are currently staring down the barrel of a loaded corporate shotgun. The owners intentionally wasted 6 weeks of time, compressed the timeline into a 2-week panic window, and are now using the logistical reality of an empty league to force a total surrender. The players' union thought they held all the leverage because they had Caitlin Clark, but the billionaires knew the truth. Caitlin Clark does not need the union, and the union cannot survive without the billionaires. What is your completely unvarnished, highly analytical take on this massive corporate standoff? Do you believe the WNBA owners executed a brilliant strategy by ghosting the players for 6 weeks to create a panic deadline? Or is it a dangerous game of chicken that will destroy the season? And more importantly, does Caitlin Clark's presence at a luxury fashion event in Italy prove that she has completely transcended the WNBA and holds the ultimate leverage over both the players and the owners? Drop your completely unfiltered, brutal analysis in the comments section below. If you want the uncompromising truth about the real business, the real strategy, and the real cutthroat corporate politics of professional sports, hit that subscribe button, brutally smash the like button, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a deep dive. We do not do mainstream media fluff on this channel. We expose the leverage, we follow the psychological warfare, and we reveal the mathematical reality behind the press conferences. I will see you all in the next breakdown.